What's going on, guys? Big welcome to you all to our channel. We are Team Crushing the Meta. You're here with D-Boy and we are back with another video. Sorry about the glare, you see a little bit of a glare right here, but I will showcase which cars are here and explain it as well. But in this video, we will talk about both Rising Nova builds that we have. So we talk about Spike Brothers, we talk about Spike Brothers and Standard, and we will actually compare the build that uses the Spiking Cyclone to the build that uses the Dudleys. If you guys really want to know how these builds look like, then there will be links in the description section below where you could see both decks and you see me explaining how to build the Dudley deck and see me going from this deck to that deck. So you will see both builds up there, and it's not that long of a video, especially the first part of it where I only showcase the deck, and then the second part of it will showcase a combo, but that combo will be showcased in this video as well. So what will we be doing in this video is we will actually go through the turns that you ride the first time into Rising and the second time into Rising in this deck and that deck, and we will see which deck is actually stronger by just counting the shield value that your opponent actually needs to guard all of those. So we will also be talking about the consistency of each deck, the playstyle, how flexible is a deck, or what could you do against different decks. Do you really need field? Do you have some hand advantage and whatnot? And yeah, we'll be showcasing all of that in this video. Alright, so first we could actually talk about the flexibility of each deck. So we talk about the Cyclone deck, the Spiking Cyclone deck. We all know that the deck actually uses a Vanguard, a powerhouse Vanguard, and the 3 standards. So that's why we have the Provoke Needle or the Brachy, and we also love to play Juggernaut in this deck because it's a big powerhouse that could attack twice. So that's one of the things that this deck is very good at, is using one strong powerhouse, and you don't really need to keep the right pieces in your deck to keep calling them. Well, this deck actually needs the right pieces in the deck. It needs Lucifer. Lucifer needs to be in the deck. It also needs some cards in hand, like having the right Dudleys in your hand to extend your combos. But on the other hand, that also makes the deck more Spike Brother-like, and it makes it more enjoyable to play because it's less easy to play. Both decks, of course, use Rising Nova as to copy the grade 3s, and one of the cards that you copy is, of course, the Bull Spike. So the Bull Spike and the Rising Nova will stay in both decks because they are very important. There are some other cards that be played in both decks, but we'll go into them if we go through the combo. One more thing you see right here is this deck plays Commander Gary Cannon. This deck has space to play different great ones, while this deck doesn't, because you have to play the Dudley Great One if you run out of Lucifers, or you want to extend your combo if you're just going to Lucifer ability to the Davies ability and you don't have any Lucifers left. That's when extending your combo, but you could do something different. It's whenever you ride into the Lucifer and you don't have the Bull Spike ability anymore, then you could just use this to move the markers around. So that's also very, very, very good. Well, this deck could also use him, but we're talking about the old build who doesn't have him yet. So you pretty much use Commander Gary Cannon to get more soul, but to also make your hand better. The problem with Commander Gary Cannon is that he pairs very well with Brachy, because Brachy gives you good early game, but I have found myself actually giving my opponent too much damage in the early game. And if you do that, then they have more plays to make. But whenever you reach into Rising, it doesn't really matter if you actually gave them lots of damage in the early game or not, because as long as you have him on 2 damage, then from that moment on they could only take 1 attack, and you actually would rather keep them at low damage than keep them at high damage and they keep healing and you're not. So it depends on your playstyle and what you're trying to do, is you want to have an early game or not in this deck. Well, this deck actually, the way that I build it, doesn't really focus on the early game, but it's possible to do that. Alright, so we're talking about what we're going to do in this video, talk about how the decks actually build a little bit, and now let's just show you the combo and show you what each deck has capable of. So first thing you need to know is, of course, with Lucifer, you make an extra attack if you have Davy on hand, and Davy could go back to Lucifer. Well, in this deck, you could actually go with 4 attacks, and that's it. We're not talking about the promo grade 2 in this deck, so we're just talking about the cards without the extra attacker, because the extra attacker could be fit in any of these decks. That doesn't matter. That's an extra attack by this deck or that deck. Actually, the extra attacker works better in this deck because it will be in the same column as a grade 3 faster in this deck than that deck. But again, it doesn't really matter. We're not talking about that. So this deck could actually make 1 extra attack. This deck could only make 4 attacks, and this deck could make 5 attacks. So yeah, we'll talk about that. All right, so before we jump into the actual combo and be guarding and counting shield, I would like to thank you guys for the support you give to our channel. Always like to do that start of the video. We are getting lots of subscribers, which is really good. We're also doing daily content, so I hope that you guys are enjoying those. We're doing multiple different videos from one clan to another, to news, to different stuff, so I hope that you guys are enjoying the diversity as well. Alright, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, like and comment, of course, and let me know also which of these builds is your favorite. Of course, all of us are anxious to start and try the new build out. So yeah, after testing it for a while already, I mean, I've played lots of games with this deck. I have a very good idea of what's the deck's capable of. Alright, so we'll start through the old combo first, and then we'll come into the new one, because most of us already know what the old combo is all about. So you have your starter. We will do the same riding sequel, so we go to Acrobat Worthy, and it doesn't really matter if you go first or second. We'll not talk about that in this video, otherwise the video will go too long. We'll just talk about the way that whenever you get to your grade 3, what you could do. So let's say you ride into Acrobat Worthy, you try to search your rising, and then you ride into Rona, and then you get the grade 3 to the field that you want to get. And in most situations, let's say that you just get the bull spike, because it's just easy to explain right there. There are 2 things that you could do with the new deck, but again, we'll just talk about the first build, which is the original rising build, who uses the spiking cyclone. One thing that you could do in this build is, of course, you have the commander barrier cannon, so you could make the 21 column, which is great. You could also make the 18 column. If you're hitting the grade 1, you make the 18 column. If you're hitting the grade 2, you make the 21 column. That's if you go with commander barrier cannon, which could give you the extra soul, which makes it easier later on to do more combos, right? So let's say that you have hit, you get more consistency into your deck adding. Alright, then you get to your grade 3, you use Ambush Dexter or not, we're not talking about those, we're just talking about the combo and what this looks like. Alright, so you have your field looking like this pretty much most of the time, or you have the needle right here. Any of the 2 is okay. Juggernaut is easier to get the field because it's a grade 3. It's also because he's beautiful in original art. But yeah, we just do the combo like this. Okay, so whenever you get into your rising, your field would be looking like this. So you have your rising already, and this is your field. With or without the commander grade cannon, this is just an extra that doesn't really matter. This does add to the consistency of the deck. But again, sometimes the attack will not hit, sometimes it will, sometimes you lose him if he stays on the field, but they just put a little bit of pressure on your opponent, a good pressure that also gives you a hand. Because remember that this deck also play 4 vanilla draws. You have still a quick shield that you could back to your extra deck, but you have sometimes some extra grade 3s that you don't need in your hands. Alright, so from this moment on, you could put this behind this or put it behind the Vanguard, do it differently, depend on your hand, depend on which deck you're playing against. But in the most situations, let's say that you only play 2 copies of Spiking Cyclone, so you have those on this side and you have this on this side. The Juggernaut, of course, powers up, so he gets the extra 10k, and then you use the Rising skill to Soul Blast 1, and then you will be able to use the 2 abilities of these 2, which means that your Rising will get the extra 10k as well from the Spiking Cyclone ability. So right here, if you have 1 or 2 Count Blast, this would work. So let's say that you have 1 Count Blast to use, and this would work perfectly. All right, so we of course have the markers as well. So let's get some beautiful markers to use. I like this one, and let's get this one as well. So some different markers. I don't know if you guys have seen this or not, but it's also nice to have different markers. I like to put my markers on the easiest or the weakest attack first. So my markers will be right here. You attack first with the bull spike, and this attack is only a 15k for the opponent to guard, which is really not much. And sometimes you would be like, yo, why would you do this first? Because I actually want them to guard early and not take the damage, because if you attack with Juggernaut, they will just take the damage right away, while right here they will guard, and you will get his effect also right away to retire something, maybe an interceptor, and to draw. So this is good, but again, depending on what you want to do, we'll just talk about the guard value, and the attack pattern will not matter what the guard value is. So we will put the guard value right here, and we will be using these amazing crit, heal, and the draw. So this will be our guard value, and we will put the guard value behind the Vanguard just to showcase how much guard we have used. So this attacks, this is 23, and if your opponent is on grade 3 or not, doesn't matter, it does still need a 15k shield to guard. So we'll put the shield value right here. The second attack will be, of course, with the Juggernauts. Now use Soul Blasts to give them markers to the Juggernaut. And this would be 5k more. So this would be a 25k shield. Yes, because it's 33. Alright, so now you attack with your Vanguard, and you use your Spiking Cyclone ability to count +1 to restand the Juggernaut. And right here, I actually don't want to move my markers, because if you move the markers, then you lose 2 soul, because 1 soul and then 1 soul back to the Juggernaut. So I actually leave my markers on the Juggernaut right here, but this is still a 23k attack. So for your opponent to do a 2 to pass, we will just do a 2 to pass right here. They need a 25k shield, right? So that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna go with another 25k shield. All right, again, it doesn't matter if they are grade 2 or grade 3, it's the same shield value. Well, it doesn't matter if they are Force or Excel, it's still the same shield value, because this is 23 and they will be, let's say, at 10, 30, 35, so 23, 33, 43. So this is perfectly 2 to pass, and we will not talk about we are getting triggers. So this will attack one more time, and this will be another 25k shield to guard. So we'll do that right there. So that's it for the turn, and we have all the shield value. This is the first rising turn, and this is what it looks like, the strongest turn that you could do. Now let's count how much shield we have. Just have a piece of paper and a pen, just old school, no effects. So we have 1 draw, 2 draw, 3 draw, 3 heals, and 1 crit. All right, so this is 15, this is 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. So this is 90k shield. All right, so let's write that down. It's a 90k shield divided by how much attacks did we make? We made 4 attacks. Very important to also count the amount of attacks we make, because it does make a difference if your opponent is playing like a protect deck that has less cards in hand but could guard less. More attacks is always better. So this is what we have. This is the first grade 3 ride, and we are going for the Spiking Cyclone. So we will call this deck as C. Right? So this is the first grade 3. Now let's see how the second grade 3 turn would look like, and if we will actually have more soul, and also what we will be able to do. So let's say that your opponent keeps your field, you guard everything. We'll talk about all the benefits of this deck, including you having the extra commander cannon in the soul because you hit one in the early game. You have still the one count blast and you got one more count blast, so you have now two. All right, so your Juggernaut will go into the soul, giving you an extra soul and calling a new Juggernaut, which means his skill activates again. And that's when I like to call my Juggernaut back here and also exchange these. All right, we're not talking about a needle yet. You could say that you have a needle and you call it right here. We're just talking about one powerhouse. That's more than enough. Let's not give the deck too much credit. Let's give Juggernaut his beautiful dice. And right here, our soul would be looking like this. So you write into the second rising, and then you'll be able to get more markers. Let's just keep the same color right here and go with these two. And we will put the Force 2 right here, but we will put the Force 1s all on this side. Now, some people would say, yo, is this the correct way to do it? Well, actually, it's not. It's better to do it this way. So you have both the attacks first on this, and then you could move the markers if you want to keep soul for one more turn. But again, we are just going all out. We have enough soul to use all and everything that we want to use. So let's see how this would work out. So first you need to soul blast one again, so you'll be able to target both of their abilities, because now you have 4 markers. Your rising gets the extra 20k. All right, so what you do right here is, of course, you will attack first with the Juggernaut. So if you want to move the markers across the whole field, because you have 4 attacks, you need 3 soul, right? So you have 1 attack, then you attack with the Vanguard, so you soul blast 1 to move all the markers, then you attack with this, you soul blast 1 more, then you attack with that, you soul blast 1 more. But again, we're going all out, so why not? So this attacks, or this attacks, depend on how much damage they have. If they could take 1 more damage, then as I said, your formation would look like this. All right, so let's say that they could take 1 more damage. You attack with this, doesn't matter, we're still only counting shield value. So take damage or not take damage, we're counting shield value. All right, so how much is this? This is 1323, right? Okay, so 23, that would mean that it would put them at just enough shield, at 25k. That's what they need. So we will put the 25k right here. Then you will attack with your rising, or you attack first with the Juggernaut because you'll be moving the markers and this is the one you want to restand. So you soul blast, you move all the markers to the Jiggy, and the Juggy will be insanely huge, because how big is Jiggy right here? 13, 23, 33, 43. 43, which means they need 35k shield to guard his attack. Then you soul blast again to move all the markers to the rising, and then the rising will attack, count blasting, restanding the Jiggy, and the rising of course has his 20k. So 2 markers, 20k, this is 40, this is 53. So 53 for 2 to pass, this is for that, this is for that, and this is for the 2 to pass, which is huge. So this would be right here, and then you attack with this again. We're not counting triggers. You soul blast 1 more and you move all the markers to this side, and this would be like that. It would be again the same amount, which is 43, which means you will need these 2 to guard the attack. All right, so let's see how much soul or how much shield we have right here. We have this is all the amount of shield that we have, which is insane. This is 30, this is 50, 50, 60, 70, 90, 110, 130, 150. So we have 150. How did we get to that 150? Well, first of all, because your Rising get extra 10k, so that's the first plus 10k. And then of course we have made 4 attacks. So of course. So we had the Rising who got extra 30k, right? Because he got 10k more and we moved the markers this time. So that's 2 markers and 10k more, that's 30. And then on the other 3 attacks, we also have extra 30. So that's 60 more. So that's why it's 150. So let's put these two together to come to the 240k 8 attacks in the 2 turns. So this is the full extent of the deck. This is everything that this deck is capable of. You could say yes, we could have another attacker. You could say yes, we could have a booster, but we're not talking about that. We only talked about one time using the ability of the Commander Gary Cannon in the early game. All right, so this is the original deck. So let's now talk about how the deck actually changed and what are the different plays that now you could make while going into the new Dudley deck. Okay, so we're actually taking the exact same right targets. So we go for 1, 2, and 3, which is Rona. Right, so right here, Rona's ability will actually be able to get you 2 targets, the same as last time, but now it's important to say which one you want to get, because it does mean if your opponent only is giving you 1 counterblast, you'll be able to get the counter charge back for his ability, because with this deck you actually need 2 counterblasts for the complete combo. If you only get 1 counterblast, then you could only use the ability to get 4 attacks and not 5 attacks. So this deck actually needs to take damage in the early game. And we will also showcase it with 2 damage. Some people would say, hey, that is a little bit unfair to the other deck. Well, still, to get this deck in full power, you actually need 3 counterblasts. So that's why we're just doing with 2. And let's just see what will happen. All right, so right here you of course ride into the Rising, and before that you have the ability to get one of these 2. As I said, he will be able to give you the counter charge, and he will not. So let's say that you have the 2 damage right here, which yeah, for just argument's sake, let's make them 2 dexters. So you have used the skill of Rona, counterblasted 1, and then called this to the field, and then you Soul Blast to counter charge with his ability. And then you call this later on whenever you get into your Rising. So you get into your Rising, you get Force 1 and Force 2 again, and you put them on the field, right? So your field would be looking like this. All right, so we talked about Commander Gary Cannon in that deck, and we will also talk about the new Deadly Great One in this deck and when he will come into action. All right, we will not count the boost power, but we will do count the soul that he gives you. You also will minus your 1 on hand, so you need to remember that. So this deck is actually getting 1 more damage, and also it's getting -1 on hand. That's good to remember. All right, so if you get him, then he goes to soul, which means you could move the markers once freely, and you will have 1 more soul, which actually is a soul charge of 2, which is also different from Commander Gary Cannon, and that's, I would say, good to lose 1 card from hand for. All right, so now you use the ability of Rising. So you Soul Blast 1, and you target these 2. So that's when we start attacking. So this right here, as you see, it doesn't have a powerhouse, which actually means you don't really want to go full out on the first attacking turn, because if you do, then later on you will have less soul to use and you will have no more grade 3s left in your deck, and there are lots of stuff that will happen. And that's normally why I actually want to ride the bull spike as a first ride target, to get a little bit of marker to go later on and attack. But again, we will just do a full out attack and see where this deck takes us. Alright, so you attack first with this. This is only a 15k shield for your opponent. And because we are talking argument's sake, your opponent will guard. Because normally if they could take some damage and they will able to get a damage trigger, because these attacks are lower than normally you do with the Juggernaut, it's not good, it's less effective. That's why it's also good to have the booster on this deck, because you just need the one booster, the same as you did with the Commanding Air Cannon and the other deck in the early game. So let's say that he's on the field chilling, and take him with this combo and the next combo. So the first attack is a 15k shield. Then right here you Soul Blast to get the second attack, and it's another 15k shield. Right, so your opponent would guard this attack as well, and then you attack with your Vanguard. You use the ability of Lucifer to counterblast 1, take one of your Raggers within your soul. Anyone who like, I actually like to keep the Lucifer on the field because you'll be calling on the top of him, and that's good because he will go to the drop zone right away. Alright, so we will get the new grade 2, of course, and we'll put him on this side, the side that are the markers not there. And because we talked about this deck and we gave it lots of benefits, let's not say that your opponent is sitting on grade 3, so that would mean that this will not get the extra 10k, but it will get it on the next turn. So your opponent is chilling on grade 2. Alright, now you're attacking with your Rising. You could not use the soul to move the markers because you need at least one soul. And now use the ability of Davy to come +1 and to get the Lucifer right here. Now you could Soul Blast to get the counter charge, but that's not that's not good. Don't do that, because if you do, then you will not have enough soul for moving the markers. But as long as you have him on the field, you do have soul to move the markers. So up to you. Do you want to take 2 damage on next turn or not? Because you need 2 more damage to go for a full combo. Let's say you're not taking 2 damage, so you have to Soul Blast right here, right? And then you'll be able to counter charge. Alright, this is only 13, so your opponent just needs 15k shield to guard. But normally, even if the attack of the Vanguard is not that high, you do see your opponent overguarding, perfect guarding most of the time, overguarding, and not really doing a 2 to pass right here. They could, but most of the time they overguard with a heal trigger, or they intercept, and they would be like, oh, what, just 13? Yeah, yes, just 13 because I didn't move the markers. Alright, so again, 15k shield, that's it. Then you'll be attacking with this, with a boost. So this is a lot. We're talking into a E grade 2. So this is 2131. So they need a, this will put them at 30. And we need 5k more, so 25k shield right here. Right at the end of the battle, this goes into your soul, and now you could move the markers freely to this side, and then because of his ability, you will also soul charge 1. So let's say that you soul charge another Dexter. Right, this would be 20. So they need another 15k shield to guard this attack. And that's it. You end up with 2 soul, which is perfect, 3 soul for your next turn, and you have a counter blast. That's all thanks to the Great One. If people are asking how good is that Great One, how good is Dudley William? Well, this is how good Dudley William is. Alright, so let's see how much damage did we do. We have 30 right here, we have 60, we have 70, 80, 85. That's all what we have or what we done. So 85, let's count again, 30, 60, 70, 80, 85. All right, so 85 means it is 5k less than the other one. So we will say 85. But this 85 is better. Why is it better? Because it is 5 attacks, and that is really much better. Problem with this is it's more attacks, but they are weaker attacks. So if your opponent damage checks a trigger or two, then the attacks will be less effective, but they still need cards from their hand to stop all of those attacks. And also Lucifer draws you a card and then you call from hand. You also need the right pieces. Yes, we all know that, but otherwise you will get 4 attacks, and the attacks could be a little bit stronger, also a possibility. But this deck is better on attacking, but you also need the right cards. You do need Juggernaut, you do need Needle or Bracky. If you don't have them, then the attacks will be weaker and the deck will be less effective, because this would have been 20k less, and the same problem with triggers. Alright, now let's get into the second turn that you ride into your grade 3. So pretty much most of the time you could intercept with this, or they retire it, and you want to keep this on the field because you don't want to call more from your hand. Right, so we send everything, you get 1 more damage as we did in the other deck, just 1 damage right here, and now you're right into your second rising, and everything you need is on the field except the bull spike. So you do need to get a bull spike, but normally in the other deck you also need a bull spike. So right, so if you don't have a bull spike, you could always count on William to do some crazy shenanigans. But let's say for argument's sake that we do have the bull spike. Alright, we will not use another William in this combo because as we did with the Commander Grey Cannon, we only use 1. So you Soul Blast right here to target these 2. And of course we have the markers, which will go like this, although you'll be moving them around, so it doesn't matter. So you attack first with this. This is 13, 23, 33. 33 means 25k shield, right? Okay, so you attack with this. Soul Blast 1. Move all the markers. Is another 33. So that would mean that another 25k shield. Then you attack with the Vanguard. Now you use first the ability of Lucifer to counterblast 1, and then let's say that you have the grade 2 again, because yes, it's important for the full combo. As we gave the other deck the Juggernaut, we will give this deck the Davy 2 times. You put the Davy on the side that doesn't have the markers, although you will still be able to move the markers, but always just put it there for argument's sake. And of course you put one of your regulars into your soul, don't forget that. So right here, Davy's skill will activate, count +1, and then you will be able to call the Lucifer from your deck. If you don't have Lucifer left, you could always go for William. It's just 5k less, that's everything, so it still is good. But let's go for Lucifer because we're going with the full combo. And now you have 2 soul, which is perfect. So you Soul Blast 1 to move all the markers to your Vanguard. And of course, the Davy got an extra 10k with Rising's ability, which he copied Lucifer ability. Now is your opponent grade 3, so you do get that. It would be perfect if you have a grade 1 behind this, because this makes a better column. But again, we're just talking without boosters. So this attack is, of course, let me see, this is 23, 33. So 33, this will put them at the same amount, and this would make a 2 to pass. Yes. Right, now you Soul Blast 1. You move all the markers right here. And when you move the markers to this unit, you will get a soul back. And this would be 40. 40, which means they need 30k shield. Alright, so here we have 30k shield. You Soul Blast 1 more, and all markers will go right here. And this would be 33, so that's a 25k shield. Here we go. Alright, so that's it for the second turn. So let's move all of these because we don't need them anymore. And we could count shields. And we could see which deck has the better, stronger attacks. I haven't done this before, so I think that this deck is better, but again, let's see together. So we have right here is 30, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100, 140. So let's write that down. 140k, and we made 5 attacks, attacking into a grade 3. All right, so 140. That would mean that if we count both of these, then we will come to the conclusion that this is a 5k less and this is a 10k less. So this is 15k less than the other deck. And this is when it comes right here, but it's 2 attacks more because this is 10 attacks and this is 8 attacks. So that's when you have to make a choice. Which deck right here is better by, do you want to attack more? Do you need a deck that needs more combo pieces? Or do you need a deck that attack less but attack stronger? And then it's pretty much up to you against which format you're playing and how both decks would work. But if you talk about just the Spiking Cyclone in comparison to the Lucifer right here, then I think that this is actually more consistent, because you need less key pieces, but this is way more interesting to play. And it's just, you could do a lot in this deck. You could go between attacking for a higher number with calling a booster, attacking with multiple attacks with getting the counter charge back, and also just targeting him and the ball spike is just easier to do lots of different combos. You have to think about your soul twice and what you're doing. And which deck draws more? I would say both decks almost the same. Commander Gary Cannon in this deck is better because you have a little bit of early game, or better early game. Then he is actually better because he makes your hand better. In this deck we have the Dudley William that actually minuses your hand but gives you lots of soul. But again, you could use Commander Gary Cannon in this deck as well, and you could also use William in this deck. So I will not say which deck is better. It's again up to you. I only showed you the 2 combos and what both decks are capable of, and of course there are different combos that you could do. You could introduce more Ragars or more different grade 3s to both decks. You could also introduce Juggernaut to this deck, and that would work, especially on the first wave of attacks. But then I'll be asking, where will you keep your ball spike and him? And with against the decks that retire your whole field, this deck's actually better, because this deck could very easily switch back to him or switch back to ball spike. While with this deck, you'll be having your grade 3 sometimes in the back row chilling, and if you play against something like a Blade Master, you'll be losing your deck. And I also found myself winning more matches against decks like Charlotte that protect matchups with this deck than that deck, because this makes more attacks. And especially against a deck that keeps low hand, against a deck that keeps lots of cards in hand, then this deck is better because it needs less resources. But if you play against a deck that doesn't really have that much hand or that much shield value, but they do have lots of protect markers, then this deck is better. So if you're talking Gabriel, then I'd say this is better. But if you're talking the EXL or Force format, then this deck would be better. Again, it's up to you guys. It's just a video to show you what both decks are capable of, and we have it all right here. I mean, this is the attack that you make. 10 attacks more, but 15k less power. It's pretty much up to the trigger. As long as you hit, you'll be good to go. And the big player right here that actually makes a difference in this deck is of course Juggernaut, and the ability of Spiking Cyclone to give the Vanguard power as well. And then in the other deck, you have to keep in mind that you do need the Lucifer back to the deck to keep calling him. If not, you also need a grade 2 on hand. And in this deck, you actually only need the Spiking Cyclone. But also you play 2 Spiking Cyclone, maybe 3 at max, but not more. Why? Because you need to play the Juggernaut as well. Or otherwise you could take out the Juggernaut to play Brachis, but your attacks will be less strong. Your attacks will be 5k less here and 5k less on that turn, which will make it 10k less in general, which means 5k less than this deck. So again, yes, there is a lot to talk about, but yeah, pretty much both decks are strong, both decks are interesting to play. I like to play the Dudley deck more because it's new. It's just like you have new cards and you just wanted to try them out. But pretty much the old deck plays Juggernaut, so I think for me I will keep playing both decks and build them as well. Alright, thank you guys for watching. Thank you for tuning in our channel. I hope that you guys enjoyed the video, and I hope that I didn't make you too confused. If you have questions, you could just comment, let us know in the comment section below, and you could always of course contact me on Facebook, as some of you already do, and we could have a discussion, we could talk about the different combos that you do. Alright, thank you all for watching. Till next time.